Okay, so this is the first video I'm putting together now that I've finished up the 20 watt Volcano amplifier here. This is a point-to-point amplifier that I built. I hand painted the chassis like the Frankenstrat, oh gosh, about 3 or 4 years ago, and never quite got around to putting it into an amplifier. So came across a wonderful guitar player, Joe, looking for something to do with this neat old, I don't know what vintage this is, maybe 1930s, 1940s speaker cabinet that he had. And it's a 12-inch speaker cab, and there was nothing in it but some sawdust and some little bits and pieces of this and that that I removed, and cut out this panel here in the front below the speaker for the amplifier. Turns out that this chassis, which is a Hoffman stout chassis, fit perfectly into the speaker cabinet. And Joe had already installed a greenback speaker in here. He had an 8-ohm greenback, which I like quite a bit. I like the Celestians. And but I decided, since I was going to use the chassis that I painted like the Frankenstrat, that I would use a Celestion EVH speaker, which is also, it's a 15-ohm speaker, and it's running out of the 16-ohm tap here. The amp it's a 20-watt amplifier. It's running two 6V6 power tubes. I've got 4 CV4004 preamp tubes installed. There's 2 gain stages and phase inverter, and they're all using the Mullard CV4004, which is sort of a heavy-duty version of the 12AX7. And so I've just got the thing completed. I've been testing the amp for a couple of weeks now outside of the cabinet, and the cabinet's, as you can see, it's a little rough. Put a nice new handle on it. It had kind of a cheesy, I don't know what it was, some kind of like a suitcase handle on it that wasn't too sturdy, so I got a nice new heavy-duty leather Ampeg handle on it. And I installed new Penelco feet, 1-inch rubber feet. It had 5/8 inch little plasticized, sort of petrified old rubber feet on there, and I replaced those. So the feet and the handle are upgraded. The speakers swapped to an EVH 12L, and yeah, so we're gonna give this a try. I'm just got the old lefty Stratocaster here. And I'm going to give it a little go here. I've got it on both pickups. Just going to noodle around a little bit and show you the controls here of this amplifier. All right, so right now what the controls are, we've got the single input. It's a single channel amp. We've got a volume, a gain, a presence, a depth, master, treble, middle, and bass controls here. Okay, you'll notice there are silver colored knobs and black colored knobs. I think it looks a little better with all black knobs, but the silver knobs indicate switchable knob. Okay, so for example, if I pull out on the bass control, which is silver, that acts like a boost for the amp by cutting out the tone stack completely. So it'll disable the treble, middle, and bass controls and give a pure sound coming to it, but it's a little bit louder than it was previously. So that's pulling out on the bass. That's why that's a silver control. Middle and treble are not switched controls. That's why they're black knobs. So they're just typical, middle and high controls to adjust the equalization. The master volume is a switch control. And the master, let's see. Well, maybe I should walk you through all of these because I actually forget what the master switch does at the moment. So, but you can see that the depth control, which some amps call resonance, this is a type of control on the negative feedback at lower frequencies. It's similar to the presence control. Presence control, you're probably familiar with, that controls sort of the mid to higher frequencies affected by negative feedback. The depth control does the same thing as presence, but just at lower frequencies. So the negative feedback comes off the common tap at the impedance switch on the back. So whether you're using a 4 ohm, an 8 ohm, or a 16 ohm, or a 15 ohm in this case, speaker, whichever you select, the negative feedback going back into the amp, which gives it more headroom, and a cleaner tone, a little bit more power, I guess you could say. That's always coming off the active speaker lead. So, you know, some amps just set it to the 8 ohm tap, and then they might run the speaker at a 4 ohm tap or a 16 ohm tap, and so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. On this amp, the presence and depth control, they're both being fed by the active speaker connection. Gain is the second gain, and volume is the first gain in the input stage, and they are both switched. And so let's just noodle around a little bit and we'll see. I've got sort of everything set to noon except for the master is down all the way, and I'm just going to show you kind of what these are doing here. So let's see. So with the master down, there's also a variac control in the back, which you can't see right now. That acts a bit like a master volume, and it's maxed out right now. So we're not going to play with that. The only other controls on the rear of the amp are the ohm switch, which we wouldn't normally switch because it's to set the speaker ohms. And the speaker's a 15 ohm speaker running on the 16 ohm tap. We've got the speaker cable connection, which is a speak-on connector. It's a locking speak-on connector, which is nice. You don't want to ever run a tube amp without the speaker connected. You could damage the transformers and other parts of the amplifier if you do that. And occasionally a 1/4 inch, it's possible for a 1/4 inch plug to slip out of its jack. So we never want that to happen. So on this amp, we've installed the speak-on connector, and it's a locking, kind of like an XLR plug, locking speaker connection. Then we've got the effects loop in and out jacks are on the back, and with a power switch and a fuse, and the IEC connector with an indicator light also on the back. So I'll probably show you that afterwards, but right now we'll just play around with these knobs and show you what they do. So here we go. Just playing an little old A chord. Turn up the master a little bit. All right. Now if we pull out the volume knob, get a little boost. And that's because this is a bright switch on the volume knob. So it's connecting a capacitor into the signal. So we get a little bit of a bright boost pulling out the volume knob. There's also a bright switch here on the second volume knob, which is gain. And you can see that gives it a boost. So two bright switches essentially on the volume and gain. You could think of these both as gain 1 and gain 2, or volume 1 and volume 2. These are preamp controls, and they both have a bright switch on them. Presence, again, that's the amount of negative feedback going back to the phase inverter from the speaker output. a subtle change. It's not too dramatic, but you can dial it in. Particularly at loud volumes, you notice a difference here. So it's something nice to be able to adjust. Also, the resonance or depth control here, same thing there. Now the depth and master volume controls. Depth adjusts sort of the deeper frequencies that are being affected by negative feedback, and where the headroom is affecting the frequencies. So headroom gets stronger when you turn up the depth knob. Headroom gets stronger in the lower frequencies, and gets lighter in the lower frequencies when you turn the depth knob down. With the presence, you've got your mid and upper frequencies being more affected by the negative feedback. So a little bit more headroom as you turn this up in the upper frequencies, a little bit more headroom as you turn up the depth in the lower frequencies. Right. Now the depth in the master volume is a typical master volume, so this adjusts the volume of the entire amp. The variac control on the rear panel also acts a little bit similar to the master volume here. Now the depth and the master volume are both switchable pots, and these have saturation switches on them. So if I pull out the depth, you hear that the saturation kicks in there. It's almost like putting a fuzz box into the circuit by pulling out the depth knob. Also, the master knob is also switched. That also has a saturation circuit in there. It's a little bit different, voiced differently than this one, so you can kind of pick and choose which one you like better. They're both selectable independently, but only one at a time can work. So when the master volume is out, switch is pulled out, then you're getting this second saturation no matter what you do here. This doesn't do anything at that point. If you don't have the master switch pulled out, and you pull out the depth knob, you get that saturation. Saturation overrides this saturation. All right. So with both of them in, it's a little bit cleaner. I mean, it's not a super clean amp to begin with. It's a relatively high, high saturation amp, but that's cleanest is without these guys pulled out. So these guys sort of introduce a little bit of 80s brown sound. That's kind of the idea. And playing with these in addition to the variac loudness control on the rear, you can sort of dial in some nice 80s, 70s and 80s and early 90s tones at saturation levels with these guys. Of course, treble and middle are just obviously EQ. You increase the highs and mids, or decrease the highs and mids, whatever you, however you want to set your equalization. And the bass is also switchable. So the bass controls the low frequencies normally. So up is more bass and down is less bass. And then again, however you have this set, if you pull out the bass control, you get a little bit of a boost. It's like a little bit of a clean boost. Marshall style treble, middle, and bass tone stack. So disabling that gives it a boost. That's with the master on, you know, like 2.5. I can't crank this up here. My neighbors will kill me. But the amp's pretty awesome little amp. It's a 20-watt amp. Again, 3 12AX7s in the preamp, 2 for gain stages, and a buffer for the EQ, and then the third 12AX7 preamp tube is the phase inverter. It's a typical Marshall long-tailed pair phase inverter. It's a great little amp. It sounds phenomenal, and I hope Joe's really going to dig this because it's a rocker, and it's cool. It's in this old, you know, this old 1930s, whatever this like was, a little projector speaker or something. So it's kind of a sleeper. All right, hopefully Joe's going to dig this amp, and I kind of am in love with it. I hate to even let it go. But yeah, so there's an introduction. I call this amp the Volcano. It's a Princeton Thermionic 20-watt Volcano amp, and I call it the Volcano because it was designed to get Eddie Van Halen's Brown sound, and of course, Eddie's famous song, Solo Eruption, is the eruption of a volcano. So helps to have a volcano if you're going to play Eruption. All right, so that's the idea. I've also been calling it the Franken amp because it's painted like the Frankenstrat. I think the model for Princeton Thermionic, if anyone else wants to buy one, would be the Volcano. But it's a great little 20-watt amp. It's based on the Cherrytone Son of Yeti circuit. It's not, I don't use the board or any, I don't use any Cherrytone components, with the exception of, I do use their transformers in this amp. So the power transformer and the output transformer are by Prometheus, and that's the iron provider that Cherrytone uses. And I bought them through Cherrytone, and I think the circuit is great. I did my own little version of their circuit. It's not exactly their circuit, but it's pretty close, and it's essentially based on their circuit. So there's no board. It's all point to point. It's going to be a little bit of a nightmare for any service tech to you know, modify or make repairs to, because it is point to point, and there's not a lot of room in there. It's not easy to change the components, and not as easy as it would be if it were a, you know, a turret board or a you know, an eyelet board or even a PCB. There is no board, so all the components are wired point to point directly from each pot to either the tubes, sockets, or to ground. There's a ground bus running right up above all the pots inside there, so, or to various other points in the circuit. So it was a heck of a lot of fun to build, and I'm very pleased that it's working so well as designed. This is the first point-to-point amp I've built. Normally I build turret board amps, and it was kind of a fun little puzzle and challenge for me, and I enjoy building it, and I hope Joe enjoys playing it as much as I enjoy building it.